Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our talk. My name is Noor Ali Hassan, and this is Julie Aranda. And we are both user experience researchers on the Android team at Google. So as you heard already yesterday during the keynote, we've made a bunch of changes to notifications in Android N. And today we're going to tell you about some research that we conducted last fall that's helping us think about notifications in a different way for future Android releases. So our agenda for today's talk, first we're going to tell you about the specific study, how we went about conducting it. Then we're going to tell you about some of the things that we learned. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up by talking about what all of this means for Android as a platform and what it means to you guys as application developers. All right, so let's talk about this study. So last fall, we wanted to better understand how our users deal with notifications and how notifications impact their lives. And when we started thinking about it, we realized that notifications isn't just about notifications, it's about distractions, interruptions. So we decided to cast a little bit of a wider lens and look at this topic from the sense of attention management. So that includes everything from interruptions from your device to interruptions from other people in your life to the interruptions that are going on in your head, so thoughts that you might have, to everything else that's going on in your environment. Our goals for this study was, one, to build a foundational understanding among our team who works on notifications at Android, inform the development of Android N, and then generate ideas for future Android releases. We wanted to understand, what do people want to know when they get a notification? When do they want to know those things? And how should they be presented so that they're more actionable and effective? So to answer those questions, we took our entire team to New York City for a week. And we talked to 18 New Yorkers, average, everyday people, about how they dealt with notifications. The first phase of the study, we conducted some unstructured interviews with these participants in their homes. We talked about everything from how do you deal with a notification when you get it, to how do you manage your time, how do you organize yourself, how do you deal with reminders, things of that nature. But notifications is a sort of thing that's fleeting, it's in the moment, and we didn't just want people to tell us about notifications, we wanted to actually observe them, dealing with them in real life. So we conducted some full day, so 8-hour to 7-hour interview observations and half-day observations, so about 3 to 4 hours, where we literally just followed these folks around during that time and watched them do everything from running errands to childcare and just kind of, watch what they did when they got notifications. And we observed all sorts of things that, had we only interviewed them, I don't think we would have been able to capture as well. So I'll give you an example. One of the participants that I observed during the 3 or 4 hours that we were watching her, she had received this email that this article that she had written had gotten published online. And it was the first time that she had ever had anything like that happen. So, here we watched her deal with the initial email notification and then watched her, pull out her Chromebook, a tablet, and her smartphone and deal with all the notifications that she got from, people on social media, like her friends and family liking the article, to her husband SMSing her about it, to her mom calling her. And that's the sort of thing that, she probably could have told us about it in an interview, but it was an entirely different experience to watch her deal with it in the moment. After those first 2 phases, we then asked some of these participants to come to our office in New York City, and we conducted some buddy sessions with them where we asked them to actually bring along a couple of their friends and had some discussions with the 3 of them around notifications, how they dealt with them. And then we also did some design exercises where we asked them to imagine a world where they had no limitations and what would they want notifications to be like. And then at the end of the week, our entire team, so everyone from people like us who are UX researchers to designers, engineers, product managers, sat together in a room and literally went through every single piece of data that we had collected that week and organized it and tried to really see what sort of patterns were emerging. So the first thing that we learned is that notifications are necessary for survival. Now, if you think about it, throughout history, we've actually received all sorts of information that's kind of similar like a notification. So for instance, for communication, things like telegrams or carrier pigeons. For signaling danger, like the town crier or the story of Paul Revere or even smoke signals. And even superheroes need a customized notification system. Even Batman, yes, Batman, he needs The bat signal, that's right. He needs the bat signal in order to know when to help out Gotham City. But over time, each one of these channels of communication has become polluted with other sources. So for instance, there was a time when if you received a letter in the mail, it was probably some sort of personal correspondence. And right now, our mailboxes are full of all sorts of other stuff, like credit card applications, advertisements, things that we may not necessarily want. As a lot of you, I'm sure, know, in the United States right now, we're going through an election cycle. And what that means for a lot of us is that we get phone calls asking us to vote for this candidate or vote for this issue. Today, we're inundated with so much information. And the people that we talked to told us that it was really hard to focus on the stuff that's important in their life. And that has led to hypervigilance and addiction to devices. People told us that it was really hard for them to disconnect from their devices. There was our participant, Denise, who's a busy lawyer and a first-time mom, and she freaks out if she doesn't have her phone with her for 2 seconds. She worries, what if she misses something important? Her husband, Andrew, thinks that notifications are horrible because they make us attached to our phones. Now, the people we talked to have set up all sorts of different coping strategies to filter out the noise. And some of these coping strategies are built-in features to smartphones, and some of them are hacks. The first strategy that we heard about is physically putting your phone away. One of the participants that we talked to is a playwright, and she told me about how she would actually put her phone in a box and put it away, and then once she wrote a certain number of pages, she would go back to the box, and as a reward, she could use her phone for 10 or 15 minutes. Other participants told us about not letting different sources contact them. So we heard of participants, going into settings and disabling notifications for different apps. We heard of some students telling us about how sometimes when they're in study sessions, they'll actually exchange phones and change their passcodes so that this way they won't be tempted by their phones. We also heard about participants putting their phones in airplane mode. And then the most drastic thing that we heard is that there are some participants who told us that they will literally uninstall an app if they feel like it's too spammy or too noisy. The other tactic that we heard about is not letting your device make noise. So putting it in do not disturb mode, putting it in vibrate or silent. And some people even told us that this is how their phone is set up at all times. And now this last strategy is doing nothing and being constantly annoyed. So for these participants, it wasn't that they didn't know that they could make changes or that they could do all these other things. It just wasn't worth the trouble. People told us that they wanted more shortcuts to learn about each notification without having to look at it. Because if you think about it, it does take some effort to review a notification, and the cost of checking that notification should be worth your time. So one of the participants we talked to told me that the letter K is a waste of her time. And when she said that at first, I was a little confused because I didn't really understand what she had against the letter K. And then she actually told me how, she'll get a notification for a message and she thinks it's something important. And then she goes through the trouble of unlocking her phone to look at the message. And literally, it is just the letter K, a shorthand for OK. Screening information helps people sift through the noise, and participants told us about different ways that they did this. So for instance, different notifications from different apps that have different sounds, or the colors of notifications. And they wanted even more ways to do this. One participant, Flora, told us about how her phone has an actual light for notifications, and different notifications have different colors. And she knows that when the light is orange, it means that it's her fan fiction app, and she gets really excited because she loves that app. Alexa told us about how she gets a little confused between the sounds of 2 notifications, one for a game app and then one for Gmail. And she wishes that she could distinguish between the two a little bit more because she probably wouldn't be checking her phone as often if she knew it was from the game as opposed to emails. So what do people want to know? Well, people told us that they wanted to know 2 primary things with their notifications. And I'm going to tell you about the first one. The first thing that people told us that they wanted to know is that people are the most important notifications. And this was hands down, every single person we talked to said this is number one. This is their number one priority. And who a message is from is more important than what or when. So when we're talking about people notifications, we're talking about everything that's like messaging, IM, chat, email, all that sort of stuff. Participant Flora told us that those are the most important to her, and she always responds to those notifications. But even within people notifications, there are people in your life who are more important than other people. It could be your spouse, it could be your best friend, it could be your parents or your kids. And for those people, you reserve those channels of communication. Andrew told us there are two things in life that are going to get him in trouble: work emails and SMSs from his wife. So those are the two things that he takes care of first. And it makes sense that these people notifications are so important. They help us maintain our social connections. They help us fulfill social contracts and obligations with other people. And if you think about it, throughout humanity, we've needed other people in order to survive. But we also found that there's a certain etiquette around online communication, and there are consequences when you don't reply to someone soon enough. Juan told us about how there was a time when he broke up with someone because that person did not get back to him quickly enough. And he knew that this person had gotten his message because this person had, he had gotten the read receipt. And we might laugh about Juan and think it's an extreme scenario, but a lot of the people we talked to had this anxiety around read receipts. Now, another reason why these people notifications are so important is because they just feel good. It feels good to know that there's somebody out there who's sending you a message, who cares about you, who needs you. And we couldn't have put it any better than our participant, Rachel. She said notifications from other people make her feel like her existence in the world is important. She even told us how there are times where her phone might get a little quiet and she'll actually start kind of like instigating communications with other people that she hasn't heard from in a while. She might send them a message. Just so that way she gets this positive feedback loop.
So what's the other thing that people want to know? So Nora just told you people is most important. Well, the other thing was people want help with remembering what they need to do. So all participants told us, there's a lot on my radar. I have these long mental and physical to-do lists. And one person said, okay, what's on my radar right now? I have to clean the chinchilla cage. I have to remember to go to Trader Joe's to pick up pumpkin spice coffee later. I've got to order my Prius keys. I have to confirm a play date for my son tomorrow. She's like, I can go on. And someone else said I have to return a modem. I've got to call Citibank to pay my bill. I've got to return the curtains. I've got to call the super to fix my drain later. We all have stuff like this, right? We've all got stuff that we have to take care of. Our participants told us about these. They're trying to stay on top of these tasks in their lives while they're managing all these incoming interruptions and notifications that we are sending. Alyssa said, my life is a series of close calls. She's a writer for a newspaper in New York, and she just got deadline after deadline after deadline, and she has trouble juggling them. Sometimes she forgets something and just drops the ball, or sometimes she's very close to forgetting something, but at any moment she feels something could be dropped. A close call is going to happen. The most appreciated and relied upon notifications are ones that remind you of something you need to do. These bring relief. These are when people want to be notified because they help. If I didn't have my calendar reminding me, I'd be screwed, said Andrew. I feel the same way for work, meetings and stuff like that. Like without a calendar where would we be? And then we asked people, show us, how do you remember the stuff you have to do? And people showed us these systems that they had. Everyone had some kind of a system, and they were all very complex. They all included multiple tools. There was always gaps and overlaps. There was no perfect solution. I don't think anyone figured it out yet. Some people, for example, this person, he put these two notes on his door. It's a German word. I don't know if anyone knows German here, but oh yeah? What does that say? Keys. Yes, bring the keys when you leave the house. So for him, he has a complex system, and this is just one part of it, to use physical notes on his door. We do that, right? Does anyone do that? I put boxes by the door. And the types of tools we heard were across the board. There were paper lists, paper planners, digital lists, digital apps, taking photos to remember to do something, taking screenshots of a text message because there was something in that text message you needed. People hack together all kinds of things to try to remember these tasks. This participant said, I keep a weekly to-do list in my planner. I keep unread emails for things I need to do long term. And we heard people keeping things unread for 8 months, so they would remember them. And she said, I'm just trying to survive. And we use this as inspiration for the title of our talk because it reminds us that we all are just trying to survive and stay on top of the things we need to do in our lives while managing all these interruptions and all these distractions that we're getting on our devices. So when we looked at all the different types of tools that people use to remember stuff, they seem to fall into this kind of process for how to remember to do things. And the first stage is just offloading. So you remember like, oh, I got to do this later. You have to offload that idea so you can focus on doing it rather than focus on remembering it. And next, you have to view it. So you put all your stuff together somewhere in a list somewhere, and you need to be able to access it later. And the third one is to do the thing, so the thing you need to get done. And the last one is to check it off when you're done. And we highlighted do because we think this is where notifications can come in, can help most. And just focusing on the do section, people told us the qualities they needed in a tool to help them was like they needed that alert, that ping. That's kind of the most important thing. And so people would use things like putting things in calendar, a digital calendar, just for that ping, even though it's not an event per se. Or they would email themselves just to get that ping and to get that unread email on the top of their list. You know, taking pictures, like I said, phone alarms, timers, telling someone else to remind me later, so offloading that responsibility to someone else. Lots of tools that people hacked just to get them to do. And someone said, I need something to pester me until I do it, or I'll forget. And Angie, so she missed a flight last time, and this time she really didn't want to miss that flight. So she set a calendar reminder, an alarm on her phone, and she made her friend keep texting her every 30 minutes to make sure she'd get home and get a good night's sleep to wake up in the morning. So she was so afraid of missing the flight that she triple booked, these different sources because she didn't believe that any one would be enough to let her remember her task. So how might our notifications help people remind people of what they need to do? And I think it's probably different with every service or every app that you work on, but I think for each one, we encourage you to think about your service and which aspects of it might be related to a task that someone might need to do. And how can you remind them with your notifications? Okay, so leading into this idea of how do people want to know things? Okay, we told you what they want to know, which is people and stuff they have to do, but how should we notify them? And it depends. When we looked at all the different notifications our participants told us about, there was an interesting intersection between the task, so how enjoyable it is and how much you want to do the thing, to how urgent it is. And when we combine these dimensions, we get 4 types of notifications. So here's a framework that I'll go into in more detail. If you look at the x-axis, this is really like how much do you want to do the task? There are some things that are just more fun than others. And how urgent is it? Is it something you need to do right away, or can you, put it off till later? And this framework speaks to how people should be notified of something. Okay, so going through this first one, the green section, the VIP stuff. So this is the enjoyable and urgent. So these are the VIPs in your life that Nor just told you about, because people are so important to our survival. These are the most important notifications. Some examples are a text from your spouse, a baby cam alert telling you that there's movement in the crib or in the baby's room, social event reminders, because these events are important for our social connections. Remembering a friend's birthday. We heard that a lot. People really wanted to remember. And don't remind me the day of the birthday, but tell me in advance so I can do something about the birthday, right? I wish I could have something like an Amber Alert for my parents, my ex-husband, and my son's school, so that those would override everything else. So for Alice, no matter what settings she set up on her phone that day, whether she's in her yoga class or whether she's teaching her university course, she needs to be reached at all times by these VIP people. So for her notifications, those need to stand out from the noise. The next one are what we call mission critical notifications. So these are not enjoyable things or things you don't like to do, but they're important. And often they're important for your livelihood or for your survival, like work emails, right? Those are important. You got to get to those in time. Renewing a passport, which I don't think anyone likes to do. It's just kind of a hassle, but there are real ramifications if you don't do it in time. And anything with a deadline, that's important. So for these types of tasks, people need to know if there's a deadline and exactly when it is so that they can plan it and they need to do it. And Andrew, who is the lawyer who hates his job, he says, my work emails, those are the really soul-crushing alerts. To me, this is kind of the essence of the mission-critical stuff. The next one is what we call nagging reminders. So these are unpleasant things you don't really like to do, but they don't have to be done right away yet. So like paying the bills or like picking up your dry cleaning, just like those errands that add up. system updates, app updates. Basically the stuff that you go, ugh, I still have to do that later. Shelley said, I know I have to pick up my dry cleaning, but telling me right now is not going to help me. It's just like nagging. Tell me when I'm near the dry cleaner. So we should think about, for these nagging types of alerts, like how can you send them so to increase the likelihood of it being done the most? And the last one are what we call fun distractions. So this is maybe like the only part of your day that is kind of enjoyable. These are fun things you do to kill time, like social networking, group chats, games, and news. And we heard people telling us that they check these apps so often anyways that maybe they don't even need a notification ever. For example, Alexa said she loves this game. I'm so addicted, but I hate their notifications like, you have 5 more lives, because I already know that. I was going to play it anyway. You don't need to tell me. And this I thought was interesting because if you like the game, wouldn't you like to know? I mean, it's a positive message, right? You've got new lives. Like, maybe someone would like to know. But for her, she doesn't. So maybe for some of these types of things, maybe more customization for each user to decide which exactly they want and don't want. So this kind of just sums up the 4 quadrants and some examples inside them. Okay, so it's not that simple. If only we could say, okay, for every type of notification, it fits exactly there for everybody. It's not that simple. Lots of contextual issues here. One of them being the urgency scale. So because time is so related to urgency, over time, the way you experience a notification will shift. So we came up with what we think principles that notifications should stick to in order to be effective. And when they're violated, the notification can move across the quadrants. And I'll give you some examples here. Okay, so here are we think the 4 principles of what notification should be. The first one, I think, is most basic. It's relevance. Send me messages that matter to me. When it is not relevant, it becomes unnecessary noise. Denise said that she really likes this photo app she just started using. It reminds her every day at 6 p.m., you didn't post a picture of your child. And she's like, oh, thank you, great, I'll do it now. But my mom, dad, and sister, they all hate it because they're never going to post a picture. They just joined the app because they wanted to see her pictures. So this is just an example of one notification, very useful and delightful to one user, but very annoying and irrelevant to the other people. And Shelley, she has a group chat with 5 close friends. She says they're fun unless you're not in it. Like if she's busy at that moment, then their phone just keeps buzzing and buzzing, and it's so annoying. So those are just examples of things that were enjoyable distractions, right? Like positive things in your day, but when they're not relevant to you, they move over into that nagging category. The next principle, selectivity and differentiation. So Nora talked about how there's a cost of your attention to go check a notification, right? It needs to be worth your attention, so be selective. And people said, if messages are too excessive, I'm just going to shut you out. I'm going to shut that source down. If they're not differentiated, I'll stop noticing them over time. For example, Angie, she talks about this news app that she uses. It sends way too many notifications. Like, breaking news, the president of the university is thinking of stepping down. And then breaking news, he's going to step down. And then breaking news, he took a step. She says it's so annoying. And Steven talked about a very popular social networking app and how it sent him way too many notifications and he's deleted it. And that's something we're hearing more actually across other research that we're doing, is more people just using the browser, the mobile web experience, because the app was sending too much stuff. We're hearing that a lot. So those are examples, again, of positive things, right? News that people like to read, social networking, which is fun, positive things, but because they weren't selective or differentiated enough in their notifications, it moves over to this nagging, annoying thing that you resent and ignore over time. The next one is the principle of legitimacy. So the importance of the content needs to be aligned with the urgency signal. When there are unimportant alerts that are disguised as urgent, it tricks me into unnecessary anxiety, and I will resent that source. And I think this is probably the most annoying to users. And I'll give you some examples here. Like Flora says, sometimes I get alerts that I don't think need to be alerts. Like some app reminding me that I can buy something in it. It's another place where I have to eradicate spam, which irritates me. So sometimes, do we all get those notifications where it didn't actually benefit you in any way, and all it did was be like, hey, I'm here, remember I exist on your phone? These are the ones. They're not legitimate, and they really get people annoyed. We call them crying wolf, right? Because we reserve that part of our consciousness for the important VIP people. But these notifications, they cry wolf, and they get into your consciousness. They stress you out for a minute, and you're like, oh, I didn't even need it. It tricked you, and it moves over to that really nagging category. These are the worst offenders. And the last principle, actionability. Can it be acted upon? Tell me when I can act. Give me options to delay and allow me to find that message again later. And help me prioritize. Like, tell me what will happen if I don't do it so I can put it on that scale of how urgent or not urgent it is. And David said, sometimes I get a notification for something I want to do, just not right at that moment. And then I forget about it later because I don't see it again. And Denise, she says, I hate updating my OS. I think maybe we feel that way too. So I just keep putting it off until one day an app told me I can't use it anymore unless I update it. Then I spend an hour deleting things to make more room for the update. It's probably happened to some of us. And this example is about OS updates, but if you think about app updates as well, sometimes you get like, oh, by the way, there's an update to the app, and you think, okay, I don't have to do anything about it, and you kind of leave it. It was a nagging thing. And then all of a sudden one day it's like, okay, you can't use it, and you have to drop everything and update it. That happened to me the other day at the keynote. I got a thing saying there was activity at my front door because I have those cameras. So I stressed out, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then I opened the app, and it's like, there's a new version, you have to update it. And I couldn't get on the Wi-Fi, and I was there just trying, like, what's happening at my front door? And I couldn't update it. So those are examples that things that were nagging that you didn't know were important yet, but because you didn't act on it and it didn't make you accountable, it moved into eventually a mission-critical fire that you had to put out in the moment. So just to sum up the principles that we've mentioned here, this is what we think notification content should abide by. Okay, so what does this mean for Android and for you? Okay, so by the end of our study, we realized very clearly that the goals of developers and users are just very different and on kind of different planes. Everything we've told you so far has been from the user's perspective, so all the stuff on the left side. What users want, they just want to stay on top of their life. They just want to survive, right? Send me only what I need. Don't interrupt me. Don't disrupt me even more. Give me confidence. I'm going to get those VIP notifications. That's all they want. But as developers, we want to fulfill the service obligations that we have to give. And when there's something new, we want to tell people about it. Hey, there's this new feature, or something has changed in the service. And we believe it'll benefit their lives, and we want to tell them, right? And of course, we want to promote engagement. We spend time and money working on these things, and we want people to use them. So if you look at these two sides, they're just very different goals. They're competing, and there are different perspectives on urgency. So what is urgent to the developer may not be urgent at all to the users. And we acknowledge it's challenging as developers to know the user context because everyone is so different. It's hard to know what every user wants, like what this person wants versus another. And so that's something that we're working on internally, like what kind of data can you use, what signals can you get to really determine what users want to know. So what is Android doing? So in the release, there are some changes to notifications, and we feel that these will help with those people, VIP notifications. But this is just a start. We did this research at the very end of last year, but we've started to ideate for future releases. And our team, we're working toward creating a long-term vision for what we believe notifications should do. So what about your product? Do you guys send notifications? Yeah. So for each one that you send, we really encourage you to think about it this way. What type is it? So use that framework that we've created and be honest and realistic. Like, is it a painful thing? You know, is it nagging? Is it useful or is it not? Like, how could it be interpreted? And given its level of urgency, what is the best way to send it? Or even better, should you even send it? Is it offering any benefit, or is it merely just, hey, look at our app, like we still exist? And again, be honest and realistic. And how can the notification enhance the user experience of the service? This might be the most challenging to do. There are some really good notifications where it actually enhances the whole service and your experience of it. What can you do to respect your user's attention and help them complete tasks that they care about. We're all in this together in this game, right? Like if some apps are sending too many notifications and abusing people's attention, it affects how users think of other apps. And it affects their decisions the next time there's an app. They may not want to try it at all. We heard people say, I don't even want to download the app, I'm just going to go to the mobile website. Or they may download an app and just block notifications from the start, right? What we do affects what other experiences as well. So today we told you about real people's lives. We told you about the attachment and the addiction to phones because of notifications. We told you about all the distractions that people are managing as they're just trying to survive and get through their day. We need to spread the word and start a movement for everyone to realize how disruptive our notifications can be and what we can do to change this. We feel that we have the responsibility to respect all of our users' attention. Thank you.